All right, so thank you so much, Felicia, for asking me to be a part of this. It's funny because I do the back end of all halftimes. I get them up on YouTube, so it feels weird to be doing one myself, but I'm so excited to be here. As Felicia mentioned, I've been working with HAYVN since right before we launched. I actually learned about HAYVN on Instagram. Felicia had created an account and I just stumbled upon it when I was looking up local businesses. Wasn't even really looking for, I was working full time at the time actually. So wasn't even really looking to freelance necessarily, but I just loved what she was doing and knew I had to be involved in some way. So my background is I worked in publishing and then in-house at different brands, everything from e-commerce to consumer packaged goods up until May 2019 when I left corporate world and started my own content marketing business, social media too. So what I do is I work with different companies, some really small, local to Connecticut, and then larger companies that are based in San Francisco and New York. And I have kind of a two-pronged approach. I focus on social media strategy and then also content marketing. So when you think content marketing, it's helping them bring their brand stories to life. And then with social media, it's everything from, getting that launch plan together to making sure that they're on the right channel, saying the right thing, and that everything that they're posting is providing good metrics on the back end. So just a quick little look at what we'll cover today. I really wanted to create this webinar that it would be useful for people who are already on Instagram and then also for people who are not yet on Instagram and are looking to launch their business there. So hoping that you get something out of it no matter where you are. Okay, so just a quick overview here. As Felicia said, feel free to enter any questions into the chat. I'm going to cover I want to talk about why you should be on Instagram if you're not already as a business. And then that's actually twofold too, because I'm guessing some of you might be on Instagram in your personal life, but perhaps you have a business that you want to take onto Instagram as well. So there's the question of, do I keep my personal account? Do I add another one? Do you merge the two? So basically what I recommend is if you are considering starting an Instagram for your business, you think about who your customer is and whether or not they are on Instagram. And I will say that, over the past 10 years, Instagram started off as a really young audience and since then has moved to be pretty much everyone. I took some quick metrics down and right now it's saying that 57% of users are in the 25 to 29 age bracket, 47% 30 to 49, and then 23% are 50 to 64, with the majority being 18 to 24. But that doesn't mean just because your customer bracket isn't that younger millennial crowd in Gen Z, doesn't mean you shouldn't be on there because it's really all about word of mouth too. So not only do you want to think about your customer demographics, but also thinking about the fact that being on Instagram is a great way to have a branding moment for your business. So, some people these days will search, they'll Google your business or they'll Google, for example, Coworking in Darien. And if obviously your website will probably show up first, but there's a high likelihood that your social media platforms would also show up. So I like to think of Instagram as one of the more visually pleasing ways to showcase your brand. What's great about it is unlike Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, you'll see in a couple slides, it's a super, super visual platform that just allows for you to highlight the best and the brightest photos you have, kind of tell a deeper brand story, and then you can get a little bit more interactive by using the different Instagram features. And then another thing to mention here is if you are a retail company, Instagram shopping is something that just launched recently across the board. Before it was only for a certain amount of accounts. It's a great way to drive any sort of retail shopping, even services you can provide where you can click a button and shop directly from Instagram. So obviously it's a great way to drive customer acquisition. What I'll show you in a few slides is also the back end of Instagram. When you are a business account, which is different from a personal account, you get all of these great insights at your disposal. So you can see everything from who are your followers, their demographics, age, location, gender, what time they're on Instagram, and what pieces of your content that they're interacting with. So it's a really great tool to use in that matter. And then the most important one, I think, although all of these are great, is the fact that you can make really amazing connections on Instagram. They, I'm sure you know, have the feature of messaging, which is very similar to Facebook, but there's Instagram messaging where you can connect directly with your clients, your customers, your friends, your family, you name it. A lot of people use that to get in touch directly with companies. So it's just a way to kind of be where your customers are in that matter. Okay, so touching on something that I think is really important, and a lot of my clients ask this. Every few months, Instagram rolls out with a new different type of feature on their platform. So obviously you have the feed posts. If you've seen the little bubbles at the top of your screen, those are stories. They have Instagram Live, which is when you go live sharing a video, Instagram Shopping, which I just mentioned, IGTV, which is where you can record a longer video and put it up on Instagram, and then Reels, which is brand new, I think in the last 2 weeks or so. So many of my clients ask, all of these new things are coming out. It's extremely overwhelming, especially as a small business. So where should you start? I say as a small business, if you are just getting started, or if you have been on Instagram for a little while, but still have a relatively small account following, stick to feed posts and stories. Because the main thing is you want to really think about all that content that you're creating and how you could get the most bang for your buck. So if you're spending a ton of time trying to keep up with the latest trends here, but your audience is small, you're kind of wasting your energy and your effort. So for almost all of my clients right now, we focus mainly on feed posts and stories. And I can talk through a little bit about cadence of that in the future slide. The one caveat being to that recommendation is that obviously shopping, if you are selling a product or a service, I would also create a shop on Instagram. Or if you wanted to just try something out, there's no harm in building out your IGTVs or testing a reel. I would say just don't spend the bulk of your time creating content for those new and cool features, because soon there will be a newer one that they'll want you to do. Okay, so we're going to touch a little bit on branding in the next slide. And I think this is something that I stress over and over again, especially for Instagram, is that it's that touch point of showing people who your brand is. So just reading this out, your brand is how you make your customers feel. And it's built by taking a consistent approach across every interaction that they have with your company. So this is something that I can't stress enough, that consistency is key. And then jumping to this slide, here's what I mean by consistency. So no matter where your customer is seeing your business, whether it's your website, a piece of printed material, a flyer, an email, especially social media, there should be consistency in the use of your logo, the imagery, the colors, the graphics, obviously the voice and the tone. And just, I would say for Instagram especially, it's kind of like a general vibe that you give off. So what will often happen is a company will want to quickly launch their channel, or they've been on Instagram for a while and they're just trying to churn out content because they know they need to post to stay relevant. That's actually not the best approach. I would say it's worth spending the time to really curate what photos you are going to have go up on Instagram, instead of just posting, every other day or once a week, a random photo. So I would actually put more time and effort into pre-planning your content and making sure that the photos you're selecting are not only high resolution, not blurry, but that they kind of go together. Because if you have a new customer coming and they either find you on Instagram or someone sends them your profile, that's your first impression at getting them to become a future customer or client. So think of it again, I've said this a million times, but think of it again as your branding touch point there. So then the other thing to touch on is the voice and the tone. So what I recommend is, as you're developing your brand, you clearly have, usually with your brand work, you will have completed a voice and tone practice. But what I would say is, depending on the social media platform, you can tweak that voice and tone just a little bit. So for example, LinkedIn would be a little bit more buttoned up, because think about who you're speaking to. It's most likely business contacts. On Instagram, I would say it's potential clients. It's probably also your friends and your family. Instagram is the place where you can be a tiny bit more like tongue-in-cheek than you would on your other channels, if that fits your brand profile. So if you are selling insurance, it might not necessarily make sense to be cheeky, or maybe it does. Actually, I've seen some really genius posts kind of being a little bit more fun. But I think the key thing to think about here is consistency, but know that you can kind of switch it up a little bit for Instagram, thinking through who the audience is there. So then another important thing to think about when you're developing your brand presence is the posting cadence. So whether, again, this doesn't matter if you're just launching or if you currently have an Instagram profile or you've had one for a while. The key to continuing to grow and to really hone in on your presence on Instagram is your posting cadence, which means how many times a week you're posting, what time of day you're posting. So if you're just starting off, I always recommend about 3 times per week. And the time of day really depends on when your followers are online. So you can actually, when you create a business account on Instagram, you can look on the back end and it will tell you, and I'll show that in a few slides, it will tell you what time of day and what day of the week your followers are online the most. So that time is kind of a moving target. So as a social media manager, I check in on that every week for all of my clients, but you can check in like once a month and just kind of gauge, but also think about if you're lucky enough that you know one of your customers or you've developed those customer personas, so you kind of know who they are, you can think about when they're online. So if it's kind of like, if you have something newsy to post, most likely you'd want to post it in the early morning when people are just waking up and doing their email, social media browsing. If it's a recipe, you can think about doing something that is when people might be looking for inspiration, so late at night. For all of my clients, and they all vary in terms of the type of business they are, I always recommend about 7 a.m., 7 p.m. is a great time slot as well. So those two are great. And then 3 p.m. randomly is good sometimes. And then days of the week that are best are Mondays, Thursdays, and Sunday mornings. So again, that varies depending on who your customer is, what your business is. But if you're just looking for like a quick little tip, you can't really go that wrong with 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. And then more on this in a bit, but if you can think of 3 things that you want to take away from this presentation, if you already have an account, I would recommend that you focus on following, engaging, and growing your following base. Because you can spend all this time creating content and posting it, but if you're not growing your following base, you're just sharing content to the same people over and over again. So one of my packages that I do offer is kind of like a growth and engagement audit. And what I recommend during that audit is who you should be going after. So who you should actually be looking to follow. Most likely it's like-minded companies. You can look through and see who they're following. It's anyone who, say for example, I'll just say you have a clothing business that's local to Darien. You would maybe want to follow, or say it's a kid clothing business, you may want to follow the mommy bloggers in the area. So just think about who your customer is, find them on Instagram and follow them. The engage part of that is not only do you want to follow them, you want to like, comment when you can, And just, that's what I mean by engage, just really engage with any content that they're sharing. So as you get more comfortable with that, it can be kind of awkward at first. Start off by just liking their photos. And then once you start to develop more of a relationship, you can comment when it's appropriate. Okay, so just a quick, this is a branding case study that is for one of my clients. It's a local Connecticut virtual healthcare business, and their target demographic is millennials and younger. But what I like about them is they work with a graphic designer and then myself as well to really hone in on what colors they use. You can see it's super consistent in terms of the color usage. If I could click in, I would show you that the tone of their captions is consistent. It's cheeky, but informative and educational because it's healthcare. Something to really think about is the profile. So where you see the text underneath Holistic Health Code, it's a short and succinct bio that leads the follower to see exactly what they do. So when you're setting up your account, or if you already have an account and you want to go back and just look at your bio, you want to make sure that you have a quick one-liner about who your company is. And then you want to include a link to your website, or if you want to include multiple links, you can use different apps to develop multiple links there. Okay, this is my favorite slide because it's super helpful. These are the tools that I use as a social media manager. So you might be saying to yourself, I'm nowhere near needing to use tools, and that's totally fine, but they are so helpful even when you're first getting started. So if you're looking to create content, so that means if you're looking to create those graphics that you saw on the last slide, Canva, which you see the screenshot of it on the left, is an incredible tool if you are not a graphic designer. They have templates to use. You can upload your logo, you can upload your colors, you can upload your fonts. It's so user-friendly and you don't have to be a pro. Obviously, other ones that are more traditional, Photoshop for editing photos, and Visco. So Visco is an app on your iPhone, and it lets you edit your photos to create a filter. So say you wanted all of your photos in your Instagram feed to have a similar vibe, you could select one filter to use on every single photo that would get them to be more aligned. So that's kind of a fun one too. So say you don't have time, because who does, to remember to post every single day, you can use other platforms to batch your content. So you could spend, I have a client that spends 5 hours, the first week of every month creating content. So choosing what photos, writing the captions, and then she schedules them for the whole entire month in one afternoon. She only posts 10 times a month, but you can use websites like Hootsuite, Planoly, and Later to do all of that. And they are so inexpensive. Hootsuite is free. Planoly and Later are $9.99 a month. And they all come with metrics on the back end too. So not only, they're not just publishing dashboards, they help you see how your content is performing as well. And then Instagram analytics. So this is what I've been talking about a little bit. So once you create a business account, which everyone should do if they haven't already, or you can transition to a business account if you have created a personal account, because the business account allows you to see the insights on the back end. So it'll show you your top performing content, when your people are online, and who and where your audience is located. It's literally never too early to start measuring your success. And I say this because I know a lot of you are small business owners, a lot of my clients are, and they often say to me, I just want to work with you because I just need to create content. And I always say that's great, but we have to add on metrics, because how do you know what type of content is performing the best so that you can continue to create the best type of content? So whether you're a business that had Instagram for a while and maybe you don't have these KPIs yet, or if you're just starting, I think it's best to think through 1 or 2 or 3 key performance indicators that you want to look at. So if you're just starting, obviously you probably want to look at follower growth. But another one I would recommend is engagements. So engagements is the number of likes, comments, and saves sends basically when someone is engaging with your content, how many times they're doing that per piece of content. Because what that will show you, let me jump to HAYVN's case study. What that will show you is the top performing content. So you'll see on the right here, this is taken from the back end of Instagram. And this is showing us the number of engagements on our last top 9 performing posts. So what this allows Felicia and I to do is say, okay, every month I provide her with a recap that says, these were our top performing posts. Now we know what we should do more of. And then you can also look at the bottom performing posts. So then you know what to do less of, or you tweak it so that it becomes more top performing. Just jump back here. Another great thing to do is to monitor your comments and replies. So comments come underneath your posts. So if you post, I have a client that we post every single day, and then all of a sudden on one day, we'll post something that has like 25 comments. And that's happened a few times. So what we do is we say, okay, what did we do differently that day that drove that many comments? And the reason why I say comments are so important is because those are engagements, and the more engagements you have, the more Instagram realizes that you are a very active account and that people are enjoying the content that you're putting out there, which will allow them to then push your channel out, your profile out to more people on their discovery page. So if the goal of your work on social media is to get in front of more people and then hopefully drive customer acquisition, or if you just want to share your amazing content and hope that people like it, you want to be looking for those engagements and driving those engagements. So many people believe that, you know, getting that follower growth number to be above 1,000 is kind of their goal. I would actually say that, yes, that's great, but you want to have a really engaging profile. So if you have 5,000 followers, but 0 comments on all of your photos, that means that people aren't really caring about what you're putting out there. So why are you doing all that work? And then 2 other things to think about here is that you can use stories, which deserves a whole entire webinar for its own, because I think it's a bit of a daunting feature of Instagram, but stories is basically when you can share a video and people can reply directly to that video. So if you put up a recipe video and someone replies saying, this was so good, I made it 25 times, you can consider that a really good engagement. So that's kind of like a way to measure sentiment. And then you can also ask your audience. You can use polls in your stories. So that's a feature where you can ask questions of your audience. You can take a poll. So if you're wondering what your audience likes to see the best, you can literally just ask, which is really amazing. And I find that I get more responses on people's stories than I do if I post a question in a feed post, because stories tend to be where people are engaging more and more these days. Okay, so the quick case study of HAYVN. So I really wanted to include this slide just so you could see what is provided to you on the back end of Instagram. So this is only a small sampling of what you can see. There is so much to dive into on Instagram Insights. But what this allows us to do is, I'm in this almost every day, and then I do a monthly recap for us. So we're allowed to look at, you know, again, where the locations are of our followers. And that's really important because obviously HAYVN is a super local business. We're looking to get more people in from Fairfield County. So it's great that we're showing up Darien, Stamford, Norwalk. If you're national, if you have a national customer base, it's also really interesting to see if your audience is pocketed in cities on a specific coast. Because if you're in the East Coast, but you have a ton of followers coming from LA, you might want to post at different times. So it's just a lot to think about in terms of looking at these metrics and then figuring out what you can do to do better. Okay, and I will, like Felicia said, this video recording will be up on YouTube, but if you want to screenshot this slide, I think it's just super helpful. So I tried to break it down into if you're just getting started versus if you already have a presence. And these are things that you can do, you know, this week to just move the needle a little bit without the help of a social media manager. So if you're just getting started, like I said before, follow those new accounts and engage. And then spend some time, develop an Instagram mood board and select photos that fit that. And I know that might seem silly and a lot of work, but kind of getting your vibe together will not only help you as you develop future content, but it'll just give you a more cohesive look and feel. Make it a business account, and I'm happy to help anyone with that if they have questions on how to do that. There's also a million, you can Google it, there's a million articles. And then develop and use hashtags, which also deserves like 20 minutes to talk about alone. But you want to think about hashtags as basically an SEO keyword. So you use hashtags to get discovered on Instagram. So if someone is looking for vegan recipes, they might search hashtag vegan recipes, and your goal is to show up. So it's just like if someone's searching in Google. So for HAYVN, if someone is searching private offices, we would use hashtag private offices. So you think about it the way you would think about Google search terms, and then you include those hashtags and when you post in the caption. So just a quick recommendation here is think about, 10 that you might want to use, and then you can use different ones depending on the type of content you're using. So if one day you post a recipe, but the next day you're posting an interior design shot, just make sure that they differ because you don't want to use the same hashtags there. And then just real quick, if you already have a presence, take a look at your top performing content and try to figure out what made them special. So even if you don't have a business account right now and you just have a personal, just scroll through your feed posts and see which ones have the most likes and comments on them. And then just say to yourself, okay, what's different about this? Is it the caption? Is it the photo? Is it the lighting in the photo? And try to compare between the top performer and the least performing post and see how you can alter the content to do better next time. And then try something new. So, if you've never posted a story before and you've been dabbling in that, set aside some time to think about what those stories would look like, and then say to yourself, I'm going to post a story one time a day for 1 week, and take a look at your metrics or your followers from the beginning of the week to the end and see if that helps. Or you could try posting a couple extra days, see if that helps at all. Just try something new and then monitor your followers from the beginning to the end so you can see what's working for you. And then engage. I actually have, on one of my clients, I have an intern that is solely focused on engaging on the Instagram account. So she goes in and spends 20 minutes a day liking, commenting, and following new people for that account. So it can be a full-time job, but you can also just spend, say, Saturday morning from 9 to 9:15, just put it in your calendar that you're going to go into Instagram and engage. Quick look at my offerings. So right now I am full for my full clients, my full social media clients, but I do offer, more one-on-one and project-based offerings, including launch plans like I did for Felicia, and then I ended up staying on audit and growth strategies. I also do content creation, and then of course, just one-on-one consults if you have more questions on anything. And that's it. I'll go to some questions. There we go. Okay.
Do you want to just stop sharing your screen?
Yeah, yep.
Okay. There we go.
Thank you. There we go. Now I can see it. Okay. How about taking donations from Kathy? Kathy, what do you mean by that? I think you're muted.
So if you've worked in any nonprofit clients, have you worked with anyone who've tried to solicit donations using the shopping product?
Oh, great question. I actually am working with a nonprofit right now. We are not using the shopping tool, but we are using the link in the bio. So we changed the bio to say donate now with a downward pointing finger emoji, and then the link to where they would donate. Okay. How big of a deal is it to be somewhat irregular with your cadence? So great question. And especially as a small business owner, things happen and you go on vacation or you get busy. if you can commit to posting 2 times a week, and then it's not a big deal if you fall off, but using that scheduler tool is really helpful. And like I said, free. So if you can batch your work in the beginning of the month, I would recommend doing that. Because if you go blank for more than 2 weeks, you do kind of lose out on the engagement there and the growth. And then from Felicia, what apps do you use to put in multiple links? That's a great question. So later.com, which is one of the apps I recommended for planning and metrics, also has a tool to use. It's called Link in Bio. And I can also share some more. I'm trying to think of the other ones. Planoly, which was also on that screenshot, does it. And there's a free one called lnk.bio, which also does it for free. How important to mention people and accounts for amplification? Great question, because I forgot to mention that. Anytime you post and you have the capability of tagging, which means identifying people by, it's called tagging, it's a feature of Instagram. The more you can do that, the better, because then they get notified that you've tagged them in that post. And then that can, perhaps they'll share it out with their audience as well. So anytime you can tag someone in the photo itself or in the caption, that is great. So if you want to get really aggressive with it, you could say Felicia and I decided to put up a post about private offices. We could tag Darien Chamber of Commerce, the Patch, you know, all different types of news outlets. It just takes a lot of work to think through first who you want to tag and then the process of actually doing it. At what point as a business owner can you consider having someone engage on your behalf? Great question. If you, the way I did it, because I'm a small business owner and I have 5 clients and I can't afford to hire someone yet, I found an intern who could do it for school credit. I used to be an intern myself. I feel like that is, all of social media is a great tool to get an intern for, because they tend to be a little bit more tapped into it than I am even. Oh yeah, I will send my email to everyone. And so why no Buffer on the list? So Buffer is another tool you can use for social media management. It's just not one that I've used. I've used all of the other ones before, but I'm sure it's totally fine because I've heard people using it.
Britt, I have a question that's easier to ask than to type.
Yeah.
What's the reasoning behind when you see a post and there's the caption and then there's a lot of space with a dot, and then all the hashtags?
Yeah, so it's aesthetics, really. So I have some clients that want them to be hidden. So if you put all those dots, it makes the caption so long that when you're scrolling the feed, they don't show up, but they're still searchable. I have other clients who want them not to be in the caption at all. They want it in the first comment. So you post and then you actually comment using the hashtags. In terms of discoverability, it doesn't matter where you put them, it acts the same. I personally, from an aesthetic point of view, I like a few spaces. You actually don't have to put the dots anymore. You can just hit return and it'll work. So I put about 6 spaces and then I put the hashtags after the caption.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.